Hey guys, welcome back to the Tech Check for Season 2, Episode 22. Before we begin, here's a word from our sponsor.
Today's sponsor is Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. It has creation tools that allows you to create and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. Anchor also distributes your podcast for you on multiple platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can make money with no minimum listenership, and everything is in one place to create a podcast. Download Anchor on the App Store or Play Store, or you can go to anchor.fm to create your podcast today.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Tech Check. Today we have Mr. Amir with us from CityGuyd. So, Mr. Amir, would you like to give us a brief description of what CityGuyd is and what technology you guys use?
Sure. CityGuyd is a new smartphone and mobile application that brings new advancements in augmented reality technologies to the travel market in an exciting new way. We augment real-life tour guides on the grounds of tourist attractions all over the globe, and sometimes it's a little hard to visualize. So just if you've ever seen somebody playing Pokemon Go, similar idea, but instead of Pikachu, you get a tour guide.
Awesome. That's a pretty good analogy. So, what inspired CityGuyd, and where did the name come from?
Sure. It's an interesting story, right? So I was a young engineer working for an augmented reality startup named Magic Leap, based out of South Florida, and we were working on some of the original AR glasses platforms. Mixed reality really is what the term was used. Mixed reality glasses platforms. So I was helping build that hardware, and I kind of kept thinking in the back of my head, like, what is the use cases for this? What would people do with it? What would the average person do with this hardware that we're working so hard to build? And just couldn't figure out the right answer. And one day I decided to take a vacation from work, and I've been a lifelong traveler. So I went abroad one day on a vacation and decided to get up really early with some friends to catch the sunrise for a hike. And we ended up getting up 4 a.m., hiking up this mountain to catch the sunrise. And when we got up there, it was so early, there was no one around to actually tell us about what we were seeing. There was a bunch of structures up there and remnants of ancient civilizations. And we found people in the group just kept thinking, what were these things? What is this? What is that? And I thought to myself, why isn't there an app that was similar to Pokemon Go, which was really popular at the time, but I could hold out my phone, and then through my phone screen, a tour guide would pop up and actually tell me about what it is I'm seeing. So that's kind of how the idea cropped into my head, and from there we built a business around it.
So, compared to like other map and location services, or even other like normal contemporary tour guides, what advantages does CityGuyd provide? I know you just said, especially for when it comes to timing and stuff like that, it's harder, for actual tour guides to be there when you're like up early in the morning or late at night. So that's one of the advantages that I guess CityGuyd has. What other advantages do you have apart from that?
So there's a couple, right? I think there's some really important things to mention on that question, right? One, our tours are never booked or hard to find, right? You land in a new country, you don't know exactly where to go, who to trust. Some places you have, 15 different tour guides trying to haggle prices with you. With CityGuyd, you get a digital solution that is, convenient. It's like you said, you can get to your destination whenever you want, and you know that you have your tour guide already there waiting for you. It's affordable, right? We don't cost the same as premium kind of real life tour guides do. And there's a third one that I think is really the important one, right? Is that it's not just about the tour guide experience, it's really about the travel experience and how we can bring it to life with augmented reality. Those are ways that you couldn't do in the traditional sense of getting a group tour or a private tour guide. We can really create history and show history coming to life. So when I say that, we imagine one of the examples we like to show, right, is one of our tour guide experiences at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. And there we have our tour guide, so to speak, is actually, is Abraham Lincoln himself, right? So he kind of pops up and he's wearing the full gear, and he can pull out a copy of the Gettysburg Address, and he can show it to travelers. And so we like to make the history kind of more interesting and make digital recreations of things that couldn't really have been before possible when you're not talking about a digital tour guide experience. So there's a range of different things you could do. You could augment, historical photos of the location you're at so that you could see what it looked like in the past. You could do digital recreations. Imagine you're visiting the Boston Harbor. You could augment a digital ship with the old the story of the Patriots throwing the tee off the bow. There's all kinds of different things that we can make the travel experience really come to life in ways that traditional tour guides can't.
So on that same note, how do you see CityGuyd sort of evolving in the coming future? How do you see, augmented reality, even as a whole, being better or more implemented into daily technology?
It's a great question. I mean, I think the future is really bright for augmented reality and virtual reality as technologies. I think the progress that the technologies themselves are making are slow but steady, and that's testament to the really complex physics problems that in the background enables augmented and virtual realities. But all the major companies are investing billions and billions of resources into this, and they are making steady progress on the hardware, and so that's eventually going to pay dividends for the software and the use cases for the technologies, right? So not just from a mobile standpoint. I mean, we've seen Apple including new LiDAR scanners on their latest models, which really help the phone get in a better sense of where it's at and where the environment it's in. So leveraging those kind of technologies, we see all kinds of shifts going on. We're moving from a 2D kind of thinking of graphical space to a 3D, right? So that in our context in CityGuyd, what we think is eventually the move will be from a 2D kind of video of a tour guide to a 3D model of that tour guide using what's called volumetric video, and that's where they they place a person in the middle of kind of a circular array or a dome of cameras, and then they stitch those video feeds together to create a 3D model that you can film. So that's all enabled on the back of 5G. So that's another important part of the technology that I think is going to be a big role in the future. Some of these files and these AR digital holograms are very data intensive. So to get those out to customers, you need 5G speeds. So that's an important role. And I think ultimately what we talk about really is the release of these augmented reality glasses platforms, right? I mean, we have the ones that are kind of currently out, which are like HoloLens and the Magic Leap one, and some other various ones. But those are kind of more regulated to the business world, right? We see them a lot in factories and people using them in companies and things like that. But we haven't really seen them make a breakthrough into the consumer market yet. But I think personally, and I think the general consensus is that is where it's heading. The work I've done in the industry has really led me to believe that while it is a long path to get there, eventually the shift in society will be away from phones and screens towards these digital glasses platforms, especially as they become sleeker, they become smaller form factor. People won't feel as embarrassed wearing them around. I think that's when we're really going to see a shift in how the entire society really interacts with digital interfaces.
So, considering all these advancements in AR technology, how does CityGuyd look to the future? How is CityGuyd sort of looking to the future? Meaning, how do you see CityGuyd sort of building off of all these developments?
Sure. So we have our own tech roadmap that we're implementing at CityGuyd that we're really hoping to take advantage of these new technologies as they come to maturity here. And I alluded to one, which is from transitioning from a 2D guide to a 3D guide. So there's a lot of there's a much more acute sense of realism when the digital interaction is with a 3D guide as opposed to a flat or 2D version. So there's important things that we think that we can take out of the volumetric video side of things, but there's also a lot of other advancements that we think are really relevant to take for CityGuyd's perspective. Some of those technologies are visual positioning systems. Basically, how do you track where the user is more accurately? GPS signals are notoriously bad in dense urban environments, and sometimes can trick you as to where the user is. So there's been really substantial advancements in being able to solve that problem, which is very relevant for where do you place tour guides and where do where are these travelers located, and what are they seeing. So that's definitely another technology that we think is very important. Like I said, 5G, having access to networks globally, those are all kind of technologies that will really improve CityGuyd's services. But the big one really is just to incorporate the app onto these glasses platforms, and we really want to integrate on all the various different platforms from day number one that they're released, right? Whether that be the Magic Leap 2, or that be Apple's rumored AR glasses product to come out, or Facebook, or whatever company is coming out with these consumer glasses. We want to be integrated on them and kind of offer that hands-free digital tour guide experience that we all see as the kind of the future of travel, right? So when we think of how we used to travel, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it definitely doesn't look like the way we travel 10 to 20 years in the future. So that's what we're trying to do at CityGuyd, and we're trying to reach that reality as quick as possible.
You also said that you track locations for your tourists and everything. So considering over the past couple of years how privacy has become has become really important to consumers in the apps they use and that sort of stuff, how does CityGuyd strive to maintain consumer privacy while also maintain location services and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think it's kind of a bigger struggle within the augmented reality industry, really, in the mixed reality industry. You're going to strap glasses to someone's head that has dozens of cameras and sensors and tracking devices. So there's a big question about how do you keep that data safe, and how are you mindful of people's privacy. And at CityGuyd, the way we do it currently is, one, there's always a permission request, right? So anyone who downloads the app has to, agree that they're willing to give up that tracking data. And if not, they can also continue to use the platform. You just won't be geo notified, right? So the way it works now is that, if you choose to give us access to those locations, then you'll get a notification as you approach a known landmark that has a tour guide associated with it. So imagine you land in Paris and you're traveling around. As you make your way towards the Eiffel Tower, the GPS signals will notify us, hey, that you're getting close, and we'll send you a notification saying, hey, if you want a digital tour guide, you can click here and we'll give you one. So that's kind of how it works, and it's not a what's the word? It's not a requirement, right? You can still continue to use the app. You just have to open it up on your own and kind of access the content yourself. You just won't get that reminder. But we wanted to give people the option in case they didn't want us to monitor that data. So that's the way we're approaching it now. As we kind of think of towards the future, when we're integrated on these consumer glasses, there'll be a lot more information that we can access: video feeds, camera feeds, sensors. So we're very cognizant of that. So we don't want to we don't want to ever breach that trust between the user and the company. So it's important to us. We realize that there's challenges there, so we're trying to do as best as we can, make the option available to provide as little data as possible. So we give the user the option.
So I guess currently you guys are in the field of augmented reality. Are you guys? Do you think it'd be possible to do travel technology and all that sort of stuff from a virtual reality standpoint, like sort of throwing on a pair of virtual reality headset and sort of traveling to different places? How realistic do you think that would be for travel?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely a viable option, right? I think that especially with COVID and the dramatic effects that it's had on the travel industry, we're seeing a quick adoption and kind of those VR travel experiences. I think there was a little bit of skepticism about them, beforehand, but I think if you frame it in the thought that this is going to replace travel, then no, I don't think that that's going to be. I don't think we ever get to the place where people are choosing to travel with a virtual reality headset from their closet as opposed to actually getting out into the world. There's just something about the magic of travel that can't be captured within your own four walls, right? The magic happens out there. And so that's why we really think that augmented reality and kind of augmenting the travel experience instead of supplementing it, or instead of trying to replace it with a virtual experience, is kind of the one that's going to win out on the long term. But for virtual reality travel, it definitely has its place. People use it a lot as like a pre-travel experience, right? So if you're thinking of traveling to a place and you want to just get a feel for it, and if you'd like to go there actually in person, why not visit it virtually and see, and get at least a little taste of what you're in store for, and then kind of decide which location you want to get out into the world. But I think that is an important part, right? Even if you do travel virtually, it's still important to get out there in the real world and experience the real world, culture and things that you can't get virtually.
So going back to the AR, I know about like maybe like a year or 2 years ago, I saw Google Maps had an AR feature where if you were walking in the city, you could like take your camera and like scan buildings, so it would like track your location and would like kind of like tell you a little bit about it. So I was wondering what your thoughts are on that in terms of like privacy and like feasibility, I guess.
Yeah, in terms of feasibility, I mean that technology has really just advanced over the last few years, and it alludes to what I was talking about with the visual positioning systems. I mean, there's been tremendous leaps and bounds in what they're able to do and how well they're able to track people within the city. And I think that's when we talk about future use cases for mixed reality glasses or augmented reality, it really a big one is navigation. Having moving us from where you have to stare at a phone and a map with a line across it to actually seeing the digital route highlighted on the sidewalk as you're walking, right? It'll show you exactly where to turn. It'll show you exactly where you need to go towards. So I think that's an exciting use case for augmented reality. But as you guys allude to, everything with this technology always ends up being tied into privacy, right? How do we ensure that we're not misusing that data? People don't want to feel like they're being tracked 24/7. So there's a lot of ways to go about the privacy issue, right? And I think the best one is to be transparent with the customer about what data you're collecting, not to sneak in anything that's not obvious there. If we're monitoring your navigation, then that needs to be clearly stated and clearly made out to the user and given them but give them the option that this is something we're monitoring. Is it something you're comfortable with? And if you're not, then it's obviously something that we shouldn't be monitoring. If you are, then that's great, and you can continue to enjoy the services. But there's also a step beyond that, right? We have to keep your information private. We have to keep it safe. So there's a total responsibility on companies to ensure that data isn't accessed by parties that shouldn't be accessing it. And that's a big challenge that we've seen, especially as we're moving more and more data into the cloud services. It has to be it can't just be an afterthought. What do we do with this data? It is very vitally important. So I think people, as this technology progresses, I really think we're going to see people will gravitate towards the companies and the people who are really putting in the effort to ensure that data is safe and not mishandled. So I think that when we think of a competitive landscape, right, when we think of companies like Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, other startups throwing their hat in the ring, I really think that the privacy one will be a big differentiator. Who are you going to trust with your data more? Because that seems to be the direction that the society is moving in. Unfortunately, we're getting great experiences and things that could never be before possible, but you're also giving up more and more data as a part of that. So people will be very conscious of who they're giving that data to. So I think it's very important.
Awesome. So, how has COVID-19 affected the development and usage of specifically CityGuyd, considering that obviously there's been a smaller amount of tourists over the past year?
Yeah, wow. Well, that's the $1 million question, guys. I can't tell you it's been easy, right? We launched publicly right at the beginning of 2020. So we kind of threw us into a loop, right? We weren't expecting a global travel pandemic, the likes which haven't been seen in who knows how long. So from a startup's point of view, I mean, it has been an interesting journey to say the least. We've definitely seen that it's what's to be expected. It's hard to advertise or to market a travel app when no one wants to leave their homes. So it's been a difficult route, you know, to say the least. But there's been some interesting things that happen, right? So I think COVID really has hurt the travel industry as a whole. So everyone within the industry feels that. But I think that it's also bringing some new opportunities, right, to rethink the way that the travel industry functions. For me personally, I've always felt that the travel industry in particular feels a bit stuck in the mud when it comes to technologies. I remember graduating as a young engineer and going on a world kind of tour for a couple months with some friends, and I was just shocked by how many people I still saw carrying around a Lonely Planet book, like a thick book like this. They have they're carrying everything on their back, and they have like 2 or 3 books taking up so much space. And I couldn't help but think, man, this is the 21st century. I can't believe people are still relying on books, and there has to be a better way of doing that. And so I just felt that travel as an industry really um, didn't it just really failed to prepare for the digitization of society. I think that's the big one, right? We haven't internalized the need to digitize as well as some of the other industries. And I think COVID-19 really exposed that. I mean, I remember, just when we first started CityGuyd in 2018, I remember talking to some of the biggest investors and executives in the travel business. And I mean, I remember them plain as day saying, VR and AR, those technologies won't find a home in the travel industry. They're better left in the factory. They're better left in the corporate world. That's where their future will be. They don't have a future in the travel industry. And then COVID comes along and really just proved the need to digitize some of these experiences. So it's been a whirlwind to say the least, but I think there's some positives that can be taken from it, right? We can help prevent future pandemics or future issues like this, damaging this industry as badly as it did if we incorporate these new technologies.
Yeah, for sure. And so with AR gaining a lot of interest, with a lot of people going into technology, what would you like recommend to students who are, interested in going to this field and developing AR further?
So that's yeah, man, and I wish I had gotten more involved earlier on with this technology, because it's I'll tell everyone that listens, man, it is a fun place to be. AR and VR technologies is a fun place to be. The companies working on them are full of really talented, really smart people that are at the forefront of their respective sectors. So it's just a fun place to be. You're in a new medium. You're kind of challenging yourself to change the way you've thought all your life, which is primarily in a 2D sense, and now you're trying to think about a 3D environment, and that affects everything from the way you code to the way you visualize and the way you tell stories, right? So it is a very fun place to be. You're kind of it feels like you're the first explorer on the continent. You're kind of the pioneer. So it's a great place to be in for practical purposes. Anyone who's interested in getting in the industry, my first bit of recommendation would be to learn one of the cross-platform game engines like Unity or Unreal. I mean, I think that's just a great first step for anyone who wants to get involved in this industry. That's where a lot of the development work is happening right now on those platforms. So get as familiar as you can with it. And there's a lot of material out there. I mean, they're fun platforms. They're easy to get accustomed to, and keep yourself up to date on the technologies because they're always changing. So keep yourself familiar with the changes going on, both on the hardware and on the software side, because it's ever changing. The technology is definitely real. There's awesome progress being made behind the scenes, and it's a joy to be working on those products. So if you're interested in AR VR, get familiar with one of those engines. Brush up on your coding skills. Get some computer vision skills. These are all things that are definitely going to help for these particular technologies, and go for it. I mean, I can't even stress to you how much there is a need for these technical skills in this environment. I mean, basically, if you have the skills to work as a programmer for VR, AR technologies, you'll get eaten up by these companies. I mean, I think recently Facebook announced that they have, I don't remember the exact numbers, but a huge portion of their workforce is now focused on either VR or AR technologies, and that's growing, right? That's growing, not minimizing. So I think the biggest names in tech right now, they're really getting behind AR and VR as technology. So it is a great place to be if you're interested.
So, Mr. Mir, sort of a final wrap-up question. If our listeners are interested in CityGuyd and the technology that they're using, where can they, learn more about the company or contact you guys?
Sure. The best place to go is to our website, which is CityGuyd app, and CityGuyd is spelled a little funky. It's CityGuyd. That's one word, and then app after it. So cityguydapp.com, and they'll be able to find our contact information there. There's a link to download the application for iOS, and they can see some of our pitches and demos, and download the app, give it a shot. If you're traveling around and you happen to be in a city where some of our AR tours are available, give it a shot. And we're always happy to hear feedback. So if anyone out there wants to shoot us an email, let us know if you liked it, what you enjoyed, what you didn't. This is a learning process for everyone. So I think as we go forward, we're always trying to improve the experience for travelers, because that's how this all started in the very beginning, right? I was a traveler, I saw a need, I wanted to make the experience a little bit better. So that's what we're here for in the end of the day. So we're always happy to hear from travelers.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you coming on the podcast for this episode. So we extend our thanks to you. To our listeners, we'll put all that information, all that contact information in our Instagram, YouTube, wherever you find us, you'll find it there. But in the end, thank you guys for listening, and stay tuned to the next one.
Thank you guys very much.